Student athletes and mental health. Something must change. All right, so my inspiration from this came from reading Dr. Martin Luther King's letter from the Birmingham jail in the stimulus packet. And this quote in particular kind of stuck with me. It's that nonviolent direct action seeks to dramatize the issue so that it can no longer be ignored. And this kind of got me thinking, like, what other issues haven't really been talked about but would benefit from a nonviolent direct action program such as the one he described? And so that kind of led me into my preliminary research, just thinking about what issues aren't exactly, as much, like, talked about as much, but are still really important and prevalent. And so, kind of through all that, I arrived on mental health and, how that really isn't considered in a lot of aspects of, life as a student. And using my own personal experiences as an athlete, I kind of arrived on how do student athletics impact the overall health of student athletes. All right, and so that led to my claim that the physical benefits, of which there are quite a few, offered by student athletics are offset by an adverse range of mental health detriments that these athletes experience. All right, so first and foremost, there is a lot of benefit in being an athlete. So as you can see, this graph right here shows it's effectively all of the different muscle areas that are, strengthened or improved due to being, like this in particular is about running, and that include track and field, cross country, even soccer, basketball. So you can see all of these different muscles, particularly the legs and the core, that are worked by being a student athlete. Furthermore, athletics is, according to this study, there's an epidemic of obesity in the United States, and athletics is one of the best ways for kids to incorporate exercise in their lives. And so, pretty much, just these physical ranges, you are, by being an athlete, you are effectively ensuring that you're not going to be as obese, and you're not going to have a lot of those detriments that come with poor physical health. However, being an athlete leads to a lot of detriments. As much of that physical training that it takes to get to those improvements that are required, you're going to face a lot of injuries. See, all of these different spots are common injuries in the majority of athletes throughout most sports. You have torn rotator cuffs and things like that. And those situations, when you get injured like that, it leads to a lot of stress. And that's exactly what this study right here confirmed, is that sport-specific situations, which include injuries and also periods of overtraining and even potential career termination, they can lead to an increased risk of developing mental health disorders. And it's not just those injuries, granted they are one of the many different factors that goes into this, but it's not just those injuries that are leading to this stress and leading to all of these mental health detriments that these athletes are facing. You have 30 plus hours per week towards training, and that's just training alone. That doesn't include competition and things like that. That means dealing with failure, potentially even pre-existing mental illness, and pressuring yourself. Your coach is pressuring you, your peers pressuring you into being better. And that leads into what this states, a perfect cocktail for the exacerbation of mental illness, leading to 1 in 4 college athletes facing depression. And balancing sports and academics, that means you're going to be all the more stressed, both on the field and in the classroom. And so, just a few more detriments. As you can see, this is an optimally functioning brain. See, the brighter areas here are where there's high amounts of activity in the brain. And then this is a brain that is stressed and a brain that is depressed. And as you can see, there is nowhere near as much activity throughout the whole of the brain. And see, what that is going to do to you is that in the classroom, that is going to make you more stressed because you're not going to be succeeding to the point where you were. And that's going to make you more stressed on the field, which just leads into a vicious cycle of stress and depression and things like that. And so Italian psychologists found that elite athletes display increased rates of depressive symptomatology, meaning that all of those factors that I mentioned earlier are kind of combining and turning into one massive ball of stress that these athletes can't seem to do away with. And therein lies the problem. So there are 1,200 colleges around in the NCAA. Out of those, only 30% or 360 screen for anxiety and depression, meaning that 840 colleges with tons of kids who have little to no access via their athletic programs to mental health treatment and to deal with the things that they are going through on a daily basis, and that number is simply far too low. And so that brings to the solution. The ideal solution would be to begin a direct action program like Dr. King to push for this, protest and do all of the things he did in order to push for, these mental health detriments to be addressed. And that means you push the lawmakers to mandate that all athletic programs perform routine screening for mental health. But the problem with this is that takes a lot of time, that takes a lot of support, and that takes a lot of money. The more realistic solution, however, is to create a program similar to what Dr. King used and target it towards the students. And rather than pushing them to, fix something, just encourage them to address their own mental health and to, seek help if they need it and work to decrease the stigma around seeking that help. And by doing this, you're not only securing the future of these individual athletes, but you're securing the future for the nation that they're going to build.
Okay, a couple of questions for you. The first one is, how did your research question evolve as you moved through the research process? And did your research go in a different direction than you had originally planned?
Yeah, at first I was just going to focus on the mental health of athletes rather than the overall health, as I said in my research question. But I really thought in order to kind of accentuate how common the injuries are and how that impacts the mental health, you really had to look at the physical side of things first and explain how much people are training and how much they want, all of these different muscles here are muscles that can be injured, and that's in order to accentuate that, I kind of had to change it to be overall health compared to simply mental health.
Okay, and then your second question is, explain your level of certainty that you have about your conclusion, solution, or recommendation.
I am pretty certain about my solution because a lot of the things, so even if they won't admit it at first, a lot of people go through, these mental health issues, whether you're a student athlete or not. And so even if they're not willing to admit it directly, a lot of people, I believe, if you targeted, as I said in my realistic solution, decreasing that stigma and kind of encouraging them to be able to, push for their mental health issues to kind of be addressed, I feel like a lot of students, even though they wouldn't admit it directly, would still kind of seek for that and, accept it as something they can do.